Stanley Kubrick. The name itself just evokes this feeling of, well, perfection, these almost mythical stories, and an absolutely obsessive level of control. See, he wasn't just a director. He was more like an architect of entire universes, engineering every last detail from the ground up. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and really deconstruct the methods of one of cinema's most uncompromising visionaries.
And look, it's one thing for us to sit here and talk about his genius, but when a filmmaker like Steven Spielberg calls your work the finest in the history of the movies, you just know you're dealing with a completely different level of artistry. I mean, that quote from a peer, it just perfectly captures the reverence people had for Kubrick's meticulous world building.
So, how did he do it? How did he pull it all off? Well, here's our game plan. We're going to start at the very beginning, with his origins and what we're calling the photographer's gaze. Then we'll follow his quest for total, absolute autonomy. After that, we'll dive into how he literally engineered reality itself, explore the architecture of paranoia he built into his sets, and finally, we're going to have to confront the very real price of all that perfection.
So, where does a vision like this even begin? Well, it wasn't in some fancy film school or on a Hollywood movie set. For Stanley Kubrick, it all started on the gritty streets of New York City, with a still camera in his hand and this uniquely sharp eye for the world around him. Can you imagine? At just 17 years old, he lands a job at Look magazine. And his rise was, well, meteoric. In just 5 years, he went from apprentice to a star photographer. But he wasn't just taking pretty pictures. He was learning how to tell a whole story in a single silent frame. Assignments like Life and Love on the New York subway actually forced him to master capturing these raw, candid moments in really low light, a technical skill that would, you guessed it, become a hallmark of his film career. And all that time behind the lens, it forged the very core of his style. This is where he developed what critics call a dispassionate view of life. You know that feeling you get watching his films? That clinical, almost voyeuristic eye? That feeling that we are observing humanity from a slight, critical distance? Yeah, that all started right here. So, as he made the jump from photography to film, that singular vision became everything to him. And he learned pretty quickly that if he wanted to protect it from the Hollywood studio system, he needed one thing above all else: total, complete autonomy. The big turning point was the epic film Spartacus. Now, this was a massive production, but for Kubrick, it was like being in a creative prison. He didn't have the final cut, and he was constantly clashing with the studio and its star, Kirk Douglas. Right then and there, he vowed he would never, ever again direct a film unless he had absolute creative control. And his solution was pretty radical. He just left. He packed up and moved to the United Kingdom, which was this brilliant, strategic masterstroke. It allowed him to build a fortress of creative independence, far, far away from the Hollywood machine. Over there, he could work at his own slow, methodical pace, and he centralized his entire operation, right from the privacy of his own home. Okay, so now that he's working from his creative fortress, this is where things get really wild. Kubrick starts to radically re-engineer the very tools of filmmaking. He wasn't happy just using cameras. He was determined to push them way, way beyond what anyone thought was possible. Okay, take his masterpiece, Barry Lyndon. He wanted to capture the authentic look of the 18th century, and that meant shooting interiors lit only by the soft, flickering glow of candles. Simple enough, right? Except, how do you actually do that? Back in the 1970s, it was considered technically impossible. His solution was just extraordinary. On the left, you see a standard film lens. On the right, that's his answer, a massive f.7 aperture lens. This thing was originally designed by Zeiss for one single purpose, so NASA could photograph the dark side of the moon. Kubrick hunted down 3 of these priceless lenses and had his camera custom-built just to fit them. It literally gave him the power to shoot in near total darkness. And this obsession with solving the impossible just kept going. For 2001: A Space Odyssey, he needed to create these vast prehistoric landscapes for the Dawn of Man sequence, but he absolutely refused to let them look fake. His solution was a revolutionary front projection system, using a custom projector and this special screen that was 100 times more reflective than normal because it was coated in millions of microscopic glass beads. I mean, the specifications here are just staggering. He used these giant 8 by 10-inch transparencies for the backgrounds, which needed a water-cooled projector just to stop them from melting. And the famous centrifuge set, that alone cost $750,000 back in the 1960s. This wasn't just filmmaking. This was on the level of aerospace engineering. But this obsession with detail went way beyond technology.
Kubrick used his sets to get inside our heads, turning these physical spaces into haunting reflections of his characters' fractured minds.
Okay, this is one of my favorite details. In the black and white film Dr. Strangelove, that iconic war room table was covered in green felt. Now, why would you do that in a black and white movie? Because Kubrick wanted the actors to feel like they were in a high-stakes poker game, gambling with the fate of humanity. It's a psychological detail the audience never actually sees, but you absolutely feel it.
His commitment to realism was just on another level. To film Full Metal Jacket, he didn't go to Vietnam. Oh no, he brought Vietnam to London. He found a derelict gasworks, literally blew parts of it up with explosives to simulate bomb damage, imported palm trees from Spain and Morocco, and meticulously recreated Vietnamese advertisements from the Library of Congress. The result was a chillingly authentic war zone just miles from his own house.
And then there's The Shining. He got his hands on the brand new Steadicam and completely transformed how it was used. The camera doesn't just follow Danny on his little tricycle. It glides, it hunts, it prowls through those hallways. That smooth, relentless movement makes the Overlook Hotel feel alive, like a predator stalking its prey through those endless, terrifying corridors.
But, and this is a really big but, this level of control, this relentless, obsessive pursuit of a perfect vision, it came at a tremendous human cost. It pushed his collaborators to their absolute limits and sometimes way beyond.
This number really says it all. 127. That's how many takes he demanded from actor Shelley Duvall for that terrifying baseball bat scene in The Shining. The psychological toll was so immense that her hair literally started to fall out from the stress. For Kubrick, this wasn't sadism, it was his method. He believed it was the only way to strip away the acting and get to something terrifyingly real, pure, authentic terror.
And if you think that was just a one-off, it wasn't. He pushed the actor Scatman Crothers through a world record 148 takes of a single simple scene, reducing the veteran actor to tears. This just reinforces a crucial point. It wasn't just about perfectionism. It was a deliberate method of exhaustion designed to push his actors into a state that was beyond performance.
But maybe no one embodies the demands and the strange devotion that Kubrick inspired more than a man named Leon Vitali. After a standout role in Barry Lyndon, Vitali gave up his entire acting career to become Kubrick's right-hand man. Kubrick even gave him a special title, film worker. For decades, Vitali did everything: casting, color timing, coaching, working 16-hour days, 7 days a week, in total service to the director's vision.
The actor Matthew Modine, who starred in Full Metal Jacket, described Vitali's sacrifice with one powerful word: a crucifixion. It just captures the totality of the devotion, doesn't it? The complete sublimation of one man's entire life in service of another man's art.
And this really leaves us with the central paradox of Stanley Kubrick. He engineered some of the most profound, technically brilliant, and unforgettable films ever made. But the process was undeniably brutal. So where's the line? Where is the line between visionary art and human cost? Is there even one? That is the uncomfortable but essential question that his incredible body of work leaves behind for all of us to confront.